We begin today with multiple reports that LeBron James will miss at least a couple of weeks due to a foot injury suffered in Sunday's comeback win over Dallas. The Lakers had won the first two of what LeBron called 23 of the most important regular season games of his career, and they have 21 left. Wilbon, where does this leave the Lakers and the rest of the league?
Outside looking in, Tony, in terms of the Lakers, and I certainly, and I said this to you, you and I, of course, talked about this much of the weekend off air about LeBron and making the playoffs, and we're both rooting for this, and we both think that basketball and sports talk, all of it is better for having LeBron, and now we don't have him.
Yes.
And, Tony, given that they were going to be in a pinch to make the playoffs with LeBron playing at the crazy level he was playing at 38 years old, where he's averaging nearly 30 points and 8 or 9 assists and 8 or 9 rebounds. It's insane the way he's playing. Well, if you're struggling to make the playoffs with that incredible contribution, how do you make it without that? And I just don't see that, even though the roster's better. So where does it leave the league? I think we would have talked about this and LeBron and these games and trying to make the playoffs and trying to get from 8th to 6th to whatever every day in this sprint, this Usain Bolt sprint to the end of the regular season. And now we don't have that. I think sports is lesser for not having one of the great competitors and winners of all time.
Yeah, so I will deal with the league question. Where it leaves the league is the league will survive. LeBron James didn't make the playoffs last year, and amazingly, they started the NBA season on time. Now, what is true is that LeBron is the biggest draw in the league, and Steph Curry is the second biggest draw in the league. And if you don't have LeBron for television ratings, because he moves the needle, the television ratings sink. And if the Golden State Warriors make it and go out quickly and you lose Curry, then the television ratings plunge. Where this leaves the Lakers, and you and I may argue about this, we don't know. There is no definitive word on when the guy is coming back. Could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or it could be an hour and a half. I mean, we really don't know. It has not been posted yet as to what's going on. Every single time LeBron is in the game, the Lakers have a chance to win. If you didn't believe it before, you had to believe it after they beat Dallas. But you and I seem to differ on this. You seem to think this is a league where 20 of 30 teams make the playoffs, the largest number of teams in all of sports. And you seem to think that the playoffs is if you're in the 6th spot or better. Whereas to me, if you're in the 10th, and if he misses 10 of 21 games, they can still be in the 10th spot. You have a chance because you're in the play-in. You're in the playoffs.
No, Tony, okay, that's very you've turned into such an optimist. I don't know what's happened to you the last few years. You raise a good point. But, Tony, I don't know that they can get to that. They're 12th. They were just 13th, and now they don't have him. So who are they going to pass? Who are they going to catch? Who would they beat in the play-in?
Well,
I'm not as optimistic, I think. And I hear you. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic today.
Well, here's my worry. Here's my worry, Mike. My worry is that Anthony Davis, with LeBron out, will try to carry the team, will go down in a heap, and he won't come back for the playoffs. LeBron will, and he won't come back for the playoffs, and then they're sunk. Because in the playoffs, you need both those guys. You need them both.
It's just bad news. Bad news for people who like to watch basketball. If you love to watch basketball, you love to watch LeBron, and he's not there. Let's move to 2 new reports on Dan Snyder and the potential sale of the Washington Commanders.
Well, first of all, I completely understand, as you would completely understand, why he doesn't want to sell to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Snyder hates reading about himself in the Washington Post. But there is a position where he could swallow hard when Bezos offers him $2 billion more than anybody else, and he could take the money. I think the larger issue here is that Dan Snyder has no support among owners whatsoever.
Right.
He lost a bunch of owners when it was reported that Snyder allegedly hired private investigators to dig up dirt on some people. And now he wants complete indemnification. You say, indemnification for what? And more owners don't want that. And I can imagine, and so can you, Roger Goodell sitting in his office just praying that Snyder sells and you can get all this antagonism out. But you know, Mike, I've always believed he doesn't want to sell. I've always believed this is his identity. He'd like to take on minority partners, but doesn't want to sell more than 50%, more than 49% of his team in all probability. And I always thought, Mike, to get him to sell, he'd be dragged out kicking and screaming. And it even feels like we're in that stage now of kicking and screaming.
Yes, but Tony, they can kick him out while he's kicking and screaming, because once you get to the point
That's right.
where you're going to get 3/4 vote, and by the way, you've angered all the owners, even some of those, and we hear this, you and I hear this stuff all the time, that were on his side. Even the last few holdovers who might have had his back said, what? You're threatening to dig up dirt, and now you want indemnification, and you reportedly went out and borrowed $55 million, and yes, Roger Goodell signed on the dotted line, but what about the partners that you had? Tony, there's too much working against him. And just as I told you with, I don't know, sort of arrogance at one point, that Robert Sarver was going to be forced out, I'm saying that Dan Snyder's going to be forced out, meaning to sell. He's not going to be there. They're not going to support this. He's losing the money. He's a liability. No chance, no hope.
I'm going to take 25 seconds and tell you a story. There's a road I go on almost every day in Chevy Chase, Maryland, Brookville Road. And there's a sign on a guy's house. It's sort of like shaped like a flag. It's small. It's into the ground. It's in the colors of burgundy and gold. It has the logo that we all recognize, but we can no longer talk about. And simply in gold letters, it says sell the team. And everybody knows what that means, and everybody knows who it is directed at. He has no support in the community. None. There's nobody will say, give him another chance. Nobody will say it. And we move on.
It's done.
This past weekend, the Saudi Tour held its opening event of its second season.
I mean, what did they expect? I thought 291,000 people, that's the raw number approximately, that watched that. I would expect about 10% of what was watching the PGA with no field. That's what I'd expect. I know how to find the CW. I'll find it the next tournament. I guess it's in a couple of weeks, Tony. And, you know, it's going to be fits and starts. We've seen this. This could be new to people who are 40 years old. It's not new to people like us who've seen rival leagues come in and have varying degrees of success, whether it's the AFL, when we were both little kids and littler kids, and they were able to hold on and force a full merger with, like, I don't know how many teams are left from the old AFL, like 14 of them or something like that. We saw the ABA, which still has the Nuggets and the Nets and the Pacers and the Spurs. We saw them be able to force some inclusion. And then other things have looked like clown shows. And to me, those XFL things look like clown shows to me. So the Saudi Tour, they have enough money to be in it for the long haul, Tony, if they want to. So the TV ratings, let's see where they go after 291,000 people. I thought that was pretty decent.
So I will say this, that I've always believed this, that to be on American television, not to be on YouTube, to be on American television, which you can access on a number at that point, is a big win for the Saudi Tour. But when you've got Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed and Bubba Watson and Cam Smith and Sergio Garcia and Bryson DeChambeau out there against a field at the Honda where it's Chris Kirk and Eric Cole, who nobody's ever heard of, and you get 1/10, I don't think that's necessarily a big hit. And I watched for 3 different days parts of both golf telecasts. And honestly, I got lost in the Saudi Tour telecast. We're on a show where on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a crawl, and people know what's going on. There was so much junk and so much clutter and so much north-south movement and teams, and you didn't know what hole anybody was on. And it got, to me, very confusing. And one other thing, they were wearing shorts. I know this is idiotic to say, but it was, I didn't. It was disconcerting. It was disconcerting to me.
What are you talking about, dude?
I'm not on television playing golf. I'm not a pro.
You have been, actually.
I'm a dope.
But Tony, they got to get better at the television. They got to get better at the product.
They do. Happy anniversary, John Morant. On this day last year, the Grizzlies' young star point guard annihilated the Spurs with a series of jaw-dropping plays, including a breakaway dunk on Jakob Poeltl and a midair catch and shoot to end the first half. Morant scored a career-high 52 points, including 34 points in the paint, 5th highest points in the paint any NBA player produced in the last 25 years. Memphis is currently 2nd in the Western Conference. Their home win over Denver last Saturday was their first win against a top 4 team in either conference since January 18th. Memphis only 5-10 in the last 15. They host the depleted Lakers tonight.
two teams where you want some famous old player that guys would listen to, they probably don't listen to anybody, to walk into a locker room and say, hey, shut up and grow up, are the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm not talking about Kyrie, now I'm talking about the existing Dallas Mavericks around Luka and Memphis. Immaturity will get you nothing. Shut up, play, and grow up. Memphis, Dallas.
16 goals, 29 assists in 54 games. Joins a Rangers team that's 34-17-9 in sixth place in the Eastern Conference. Wilbon, he's your boy. How do you feel about this?
Tony, I know nothing lasts forever, and I'm grateful to Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, too, and that whole group. Patrick Kane's my favorite player ever of all time. Delivered 3 championships to Chicago, a couple of which I got to see in person sitting near the ice. He had to go, but it's just thank you for everything, Patrick Kane. Birthday twin, by the way.
2 omissions. Bills defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier stepping away for next season. Kevin Durant expected to make his son's debut tomorrow night. We are almost out of time, so let's rush to the
Let's do it.
Dodgers shortstop Gavin Lux out for the season with a torn ACL in his right knee. That's significant.
He was going to take over that position, and now there's no Trey Turner. This is a big seismic move. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst says he has not yet talked with A-Rod, and all options are on the table. What does that mean?
Means we're being held hostage all year by him. Iowa junior Caitlin Clark told Dan Patrick she might play 2 more college seasons. You surprised?
NIL and sold-out crowds. Why should she leave there? She'll make more money there than the WNBA, probably. Gonzaga's Drew Timme tells The Athletic he will not use this COVID year back with the Zags. That makes sense?
He's good enough to play in the NBA. Last one, North Carolina beat Florida State last night. Big deal?
All Carolina wins are a big deal right now.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. Kirk Taylor, call me, huh? Call me, Kirk Taylor.
Same time tomorrow, you knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcast.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.